Hello everyone and welcome to this. This is my better late than never, but my review of AEW Full Gear. Now, why did I not have this video up the night of the show or even the next day? Well, I'll tell you why. The reason is because I got stinking drunk the night of the show while we were watching it. I had a couple buddies over. One of them brought over this special Game of Thrones style malt liquor that was so delicious, and also royally fucked me up. It was really, really strong liquor. And being the genius that I am, I decided to have 3 beers on top of that. So throughout the show, I was just hammered. I was just fucking hammered. So my initial impressions of the show after watching it the first time were, I think I liked it, but I'm not sure because I know I'm drunk. So who knows? And this is a first for me. I've never watched a wrestling pay-per-view while being completely hammered. That was a new one. New experience for me. I like to have a couple drinks here and there while watching a show, but to be blitzed like I was like, that's new. That was new. So I felt like I needed to give the show a rewatch because it's like, I mean, again, I think I liked it, but at the same time, I was completely hammered, so fortunately I did not wake up the next day with a hangover. That's good, but man, it was a fun evening. It was a fun evening. We ate all the pizza, we drank some beers, and had our special fuck us up liquor. It was a fun night to be had, but the pay-per-view was a fun backdrop for us, like acting like the peanut gallery and just having a blast. But as far as like judging the show on its own merits, I felt like I needed to give it a rewatch just to make sure. It's like, all right, I think I know what I saw. But anyway, let's get right into it. Let's start off with the buy-in, the pre-show to the pay-per-view, which featured a match of some level of like build-up and story and consequence. The only one in the women's division at the moment. Dr. Britt Baker defeating Bea Priestley and getting a revenge for the injury that was suffered way back in Fight for the Fallen. So this is, one of the things that the women's division has been lacking has been, running storylines and character development. Whereas, the tag team division has a ton of depth. They had the tournament, which was really the running story throughout the whole thing. And they also had the SCU Lucha Brothers feud, which kind of gave the tag division a nice core, and then you have the Bucks and Proud and Powerful and everything that's going on there. So tag team's got some stuff going on. Heavyweights, they've got plenty of stuff going on. When you look at the Inner Circle, the Elite, Pac, Hangman, all those other things. So they've got a lot of stuff going on. The women, they're just kind of having random matches, and that's about it. Nobody's really developing, and there's not a whole lot of like ongoing stories going on with the women. The only thing they had was Bea Priestley and Britt Baker, and it's not exactly what I would call a major feud, although I appreciated the promo that they gave to Britt Baker, the video package, saying, what that means is I'm going to rip your fucking mouth off or something like that. I was like, all right, that's kind of neat. Some good stuff there, but so this was the only women's match they could do that had any kind of story behind it, and they put it on the pre-show, which I guess is fine, but I would have thought that Shawn Spears and Joey Janela probably would have been a better fit for the pre-show. Although, maybe like Britt Baker and Bea Priestley, the match wouldn't have been as good if it had to follow the tag team opening match. So maybe it did fine here. I thought the match was solid. I thought it was a nice, solidly well put together match that referenced the feud that the two had, with Britt being the more intense of the two and Bea Priestley trying to mimic hurting her again, like what happened at Fight for the Fallen. So there was some good stuff going on there. Britt Baker got the win. My only real problem with the match is that once again you had a situation where somebody kicked out of a flip pile driver, which just sounds crazy to me, but I'm seeing it more and more. It's wow, like the flip pile driver is no longer a finish. It's kind of crazy. Although it was a finish at Teddy Hart versus Austin Aries at the last MLW pay-per-view, so some people get it, I guess. But overall, I thought the match was solid. Perfectly suitable pre-show match. Probably better than the normal pre-show match. And the real story was what happened after the match, where Brandy came out with Awesome Kong, who really looks great. Like, she is slimmed down, but still, she's a lot bigger than the other girls. So she's not losing her massive size, but she looks like she's trimmed down a bit. It was like, oh, good for Kong. Getting in shape. That's good. That's good. And I think this might be what the women's division needs. I really like the video packages that Brandi's been doing. The one that they did last week on Dynamite I thought was great. And I think this partnership, this Brandi and Kong partnership, could be what the women's division needs. Because what they really need right now is a super strong heel to carry the division. The heavyweights have the Inner Circle. The tag division kind of has the Lucha Brothers and Proud and Powerful on that end. But they really need like a central heel. The women do. They need a central heel to kind of drive the division. I think this might be exactly what they need. It's one of the reasons I wasn't completely against Enzo Amore winning the Cruiserweight title in WWE, because it's like, he's such a lightning rod for controversy, and it was such a controversial pick, and I'm like, well, maybe that's the reason to do it, because he's so easy to hate that if you turn him heel, that I think maybe they could do something with him and make the Cruiserweight division a little bit more interesting from a storyline perspective. Ultimately didn't pan out for a multitude of reasons, but I like the idea, I guess, is best what I could say. So this could lead to Kong winning the women's title and just tearing through everybody, or it could lead to Brandi winning the women's title and having Kong be her protector that keeps everybody away from her. Like, sort of like what Jake Hager is right now for Chris Jericho. I'm fine with either one. Again, the women need a storyline. They need a strong storyline and a central heel to kind of spiderweb from and build everything around. So overall, I was happy with the match, and I was happy with what they did in the post-match with Kong attacking B. Priestley. And hopefully this is a sign that maybe the women's division can finally get on some kind of stable ground outside of just having matches, which is basically all they are right now. Rest of the pre-show, not a whole lot to talk about. We got the Countdown special, which aired on YouTube a couple days earlier, and was really good. Nice, well put together piece of production. And yeah, that was just good stuff. You know, stuff you would expect to see on a pre-show. Is there anything else I should talk about before going into the main card? I guess I could talk about Jimmy Havoc and Excalibur getting into a fight in front of Tony Khan. Like the day before the show, or the day of the show, I think. It was at StarCast, I think. I'm not sure. No, it was at Tony Schiavone's birthday, I think, or something like that. I don't know all the details, but that's not something you want to hear about. It's like, oh no, yeah, you're going to want to get that under wraps. I know Tony Khan released a statement on it, and he commented on it, but, you know, behind the scenes, you're going to really want to keep an eye on Jimmy Havoc and see if, like, that type of behavior shows up again, because really it sounds like he was the instigator, and apparently he has a history of this type of stuff. So it's like, dude, you might want to get your guy under control. Fortunately, he's not a title holder or a major part of the company right now, so it's not like reading that one of your champions got into a bar fight with somebody. So at least there's that, but. Something that you're going to want to keep an eye on and make sure it doesn't become a regular thing moving forward, because you don't want your guys to become an embarrassment. So, with all that said, let's look into Full Gear. The opening match was Proud and Powerful, Santana and Ortiz defeating the Young Bucks in what I thought was a really good match. One of the criticisms against AEW and really against the Young Bucks in general, go back and watch some of my old videos. I was one of the first ones to say it, I feel like. How their matches turn into like spot festy, ignore the rules of tag team wrestling, and kind of like meaningless spot fests, basically. Yeah, it's exciting and it's cool to see them that they're able to do all these things, but it doesn't make a lot of logical sense throughout the course of the match. However, I've said before, I have seen the Young Bucks have real tag matches before with story and drama and actually following the rules of tag team wrestling. And I think this was one of those cases where they did it. They didn't blow their load. They didn't go too far with the spots. They worked. They actually had the Bucks sell injuries during the match. And I thought this felt a lot more controlled and a lot less spotty than some of the matches that we've seen recently on Dynamite. I thought it came off well. I was happy to see Santana and Ortiz win. Because with SCU on top of the food chain right now in the tag division, they're going to need heels. Proud and Powerful just got a huge win on pay-per-view. Writes itself, and now the Inner Circle can go after those titles. And we'll see on Dynamite this Wednesday how they do that, and if they just want to jump into that right away, or if Proud and Powerful is just going to continue to build and win other matches along the way. We shall see. But overall, I enjoyed the match. I thought it was a really good opener. Good stuff, and not the typical Young Bucks match, and I mean that in a good way. And there are times where the Young Bucks go a little too far with the spots. and maybe they've kind of encouraged that a little bit on Dynamite, but it's like, guys, you can scale it back a bit and you'll be okay. And we all know they're amazing athletes. We know that. And we know that they're charming personalities. If they weren't, they wouldn't have become the attractions that they became in Ring of Honor and New Japan and various other things. So you guys are charming. You're likable. You're one of the top acts in the company. You are amazing athletes. You don't have to like kill yourself all the time with all these spots that you do, and you'll probably be more beneficial in the long run to have actual straightforward tag team matches with that work within the framework of the rule structure of tag team wrestling. Although I would also advise AEW to release a rule book. I would love that if they did that, but time will tell. Then we got this is maybe my drunkenness is affecting my memory. I thought Shawn Spears and Joey Janela was the next match, but actually it was Adam Page and Pac. At least that's what it's showing here on Wikipedia. But anyway, Pac and Hangman, they had a good match on the first episode of Dynamite. They had a good match a few months back at like that indie show in Europe, I think it was. They typically have good, reliable matches, and this was more the same. Like, they had a really good, solid singles match. Hangman got the win, which legitimately surprised me, because I thought they were going to put him on like a kind of a loser's path that was going to force him to turn heel or something. Didn't happen. Hangman got the win. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. They're having a rematch on Dynamite this week, which I'm a little like, okay, I'm kind of like, you don't want to spam rematches. That's one of the things that kills the WWE, is that you see guys wrestle each other week after week after week after week, and by the time you get to the pay-per-view, it's like, I've already seen this like 4 times. It's like, And if they do a match at a pay-per-view, then on TV they'll do like rematches and tag matches and situations like that. And then by the time you get to the second pay-per-view match, it's like, oh my god, I'm already sick of this. And they're kind of flirting with that line with Hangman and Pac. So I would, if they have something big planned for Wednesday, sure, but I wouldn't make a habit out of doing this. It's like, look, have the match and then have them go off and do other things. And I think we'll all be happier for it. So, but anyways, I thought the match was good, and the ending, the finish legitimately surprised me, because I did not expect Hangman to win. Then we got Shawn Spears versus Joey Janela. This match was serviceable. It was the least built match on the card. It was just an excuse to get them on there. I was happy that Shawn Spears won because I do like the guy. I love his entrance. I think his entrance is great. But ever since the Cody feud, they haven't really done anything with him. So this is kind of like, okay, we're going to give him a win on pay-per-view and keep him in the mix. And hopefully we can figure out something to do with him later. But so to that end, it was fine. The match, it was what it was. It was kind of a filler match. Not a whole lot else to say other than that. Not bad, not exceptionally great. Just kind of there. Nice showcase for the two guys. And Shawn Spears got the win, which made me happy. So it's like, all right, no harm done here. Then we got the AEW Tag Team title match, the 3-way. SoCal Uncensored, Frankie Kazarian and Scorpio Sky, taking on the Lucha Brothers, Pentagon Jr. and Rey Fenix, and Private Party, Isaiah Cassidy and Mark Quinn. I mean, if you've seen one 3-way tag or 4-way tag or anything like that, you've kind of seen them all. I can't think of one off the top of my head that didn't turn into a big spot fest. Off the top of my head, I can't think of a 3-way or a 4-way tag that didn't turn into like the team's just bouncing all over the place and hitting their finishing moves and all this other stuff. So those matches are fine and fun. They're not always super substantial. But as far as like a midpoint of the show and just giving people like an athletic spectacle, I guess it was fine for that. Although at the end of the day, it wasn't overly memorable either. Actually, more memorable than the match itself was the post-match where the lights went out, came back on. There's a second Pentagon in the ring. He attacks the real Pentagon, and Rey Fenix takes the mask off, and it's Christopher Daniels. He is back. And kudos to them for actually having him sell the injury for a month. I think that's really, really cool that, far too often, and I believe this started with the Attitude Era, where guys will take like a sick bump, or they'll get hurt in a way that you would expect them to be selling the injury for a while, but then they're back on TV the next week. People forget this. Mick Foley went through the Hell in a Cell match with Undertaker, and was not only did a run-in in the main event of that same show, but was on TV the next night. And I'm like, guys, you really could have given him the night off, and I think it would have been better. But it didn't necessarily hurt the long-term legacy of that match, but it hurts like the short-term storylines when, guys will get hurt, and then they're back the next night anyway. So, Yeah. Actually, the prime example I always go back to is when Austin dropped Triple H from the forklift or whatever that was at Survivor Series 2000. And Triple H literally came back. He missed one night of Raw and was back the next week. And I was just sitting there like, he should be dead. He should be, at the very least, fighting for his goddamn life in a hospital somewhere. And he missed one show. And I'm like, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. Doesn't work for me. But anyway, that's my whole other rant there. But anyway, the tag team match, I thought it was good for what it was. If you like that type of match, you probably liked it more than I did. Personally, I just see it as kind of, I don't want to say a filler thing, but kind of like, it fills out the card, but it's not going to stick with me after I've seen the show, if that makes any sense. Kind of like what I say about the Money in the Bank, like, multi-man ladder match. It's just kind of like, it's fun for what it is, but it's not going to stick in my mind when the show's over. So, then we got Riho successfully defending the AEW Women's title against Emi Sakura. And I know there's like a teacher-student story here between these two, but that wasn't really played up all that well on TV. And again, it points to what I've been saying about... and actually on Dynamite this week, they had Sakura get the non-title win over Riho. And use that as kind of like a typical WWE way of, oh, she won the non-title match, what's going to happen at the pay-per-view, which is so like lazy and contrived, and I'm not really a big fan of it. I thought the match was good for what it was. It didn't have a whole lot of story to it, and I can't say I was honestly invested in whoever won the thing. I'm more, as far as the women are concerned, I'm more interested in what Brandi and Kong are doing and how that's going to affect the entire division. I think they're in the short time that they've kind of been playing up their arrival and what they did on the pre-show of the show, I think that's the interesting thing that will hopefully give the women's division its direction. Right now, it's like this was a match that was more the same of what you would expect out of AEW's women's division. It's like, it's not bad. It's not a bad match. I'm not going to... both girls went out there, had a nice athletic contest, but there just wasn't a lot of story or substance behind it, even if you know about the student-teacher thing. I didn't think they played that up all that well. Leading into this match, but both girls worked hard and they did their best, and it wasn't a fiasco or anything. Like I said, it's not a bad match at all. It's just points to like how AEW is like, maybe they've got some talented girls, maybe they have good matches, but there's just not that story that's driving the division right now, and that needs to be fixed. So hopefully Brandi and Kong can fix that. We shall see. Then we had, I guess we could call it our double main events. Chris Jericho successfully defending the AEW World title against Cody. Jake Hager was in Jericho's corner and MJF was in Cody's corner. And I thought this match was great. I really liked this match. Great match. Cody and Jericho have been like the best part of Dynamite the last few weeks especially. And it was nice to see them deliver what I thought was a very, very good match. And with the stipulation on the line where if Cody didn't win, he would no longer go for the AEW World title, that really kind of took predictability out of it. It's like, well, now I don't know like who's going to win, because it's like, is Cody really never going to go for the belt again? I was talking to somebody about it earlier today, and he was like, oh, you know what they're going to do with Cody? It's like, what? They're going to have him do the Dusty Rhodes Masked Rider bit, where he's going to come out in a mask, and you know it's Cody, but they're going to act like it's not Cody or whatever. But the fans know it's Cody. Kind of like Mr. America, but hopefully not as dumb as that. And it's like, that would be interesting if they tried it. I don't know if that would work, but, whatever. Try it, see if it works. But the real story here, after the match, Jericho had him locked in the Lion Tamer. And as the Lion Tamer looked inescapable, MJF threw in the towel and begged Cody's forgiveness post-match. And it was like, okay, he was concerned about his friend, whatever. And then he hit him right in the balls. Ball shot. Right there. And MJF has now turned on Cody. Now, I'm kind of split on this. Part of me wishes they had milked this for even longer, because I love the dynamic of a heel that likes a babyface, is actually friends with a babyface. It's points to some of the things that I remember seeing, over 20 years ago. I reference it a lot, but the Shawn Michaels Diesel thing, where Diesel turned heel by attacking Bret. He cost The Undertaker the title. So he's a fucking dickhead, but he's still friends with Shawn. And eventually he turned on Shawn and they did the good friends, better enemies thing. But, Diesel acting like a heel now isn't necessarily enough for Shawn to kind of ditch him as a friend. So I like that they kept the friendship going, and it had to turn into Diesel turning on Shawn for it to become like, okay, now the friendship's done. They actually milked it. It wasn't just Diesel attacked Brett and all of a sudden Shawn is like, oh, you're not my friend anymore. And it's like, who would do that? Like, especially since Brett and Shawn don't like each other anyway and everybody knew it. It wouldn't make any sense. So, another great example is kind of the inverse of MJF and Cody, where Mankind was the only babyface in 1998 that liked Vince McMahon. And it was a great dynamic because it annoyed Vince. And it got a lot of funny material out of Mankind. And it set up Foley to be the most sympathetic wrestler in the company and the big screw job that happened at Survivor Series 98. So everybody came out of that situation looking like $1 million. And it was this simple thing of, and apparently it was Mick Foley's idea. I think he mentioned it in one of his books, maybe his first book, where he said, what if I was the only babyface that liked Vince and it drove him nuts? And that simple idea, and it was like the best run of Foley's career. Most over Foley ever was, probably. And, stuff like that. So I was really digging the Cody MJF dynamic, where there was an episode of Dynamite that ended with MJF and the Bucks coming out to do a run-in for Cody, and one of the Bucks went to shake MJF's hand or something, and he slapped his hand away. It's like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. I'm only friends with Cody. You all can fuck off. And he'll trash the crowd, he will trash the fans, but he fucking loved Cody Rhodes. And he will put him over, my friend, my mentor, the man Cody Rhodes. And I like that dynamic, and I thought it was interesting. Now, eventually he was going to have to turn on him, but I felt like they could have gotten more mileage out of it. I would have liked to have seen this go on for at least another, honestly, if it were up to me, I would have kept it going for a year just to see how long it could go. But, okay, they've done it. They got their big, oh no, he did it moment at the pay-per-view. And it's like, all right, let's see how they follow up on Wednesday, because I am interested, because now it's now that he's full-on asshole heel mode, give MJF a mic, it's going to be gold. And, Cody has this wonderful ability to make his matches really mean something. I mean, you look at AEW so far this year, the match with Dustin was, I think, personally my favorite match of 2019 from any company. The feud with Shawn Spears was great. The feud with Jericho's been great. And now you have this situation. It's like, dude, this could really elevate MJF big time, and I'm really excited for it. So, on one hand, I feel like, maybe they pulled the trigger too fast, but on the other hand, I'm super excited to see where it goes from here. So, mission accomplished on that front. And I thought Jericho and Cody, to be honest, I thought they had the match of the night. Cody seems to be having the match of the night at every single one of these AEW shows. But I really enjoyed this, thought it delivered, and you got the storyline development post-match that made it really was the nice cherry on top. And then we closed out with the lights out unsanctioned match. Jon Moxley defeating Kenny Omega. Now, this was getting some talk online about how it was too violent. And my jaw dropped when I heard it. And granted, I watched it while I was drunk. My initial reaction to it was that it was not that violent. It was an acceptable level of violence where I didn't feel like the wrestlers were out of control. I didn't feel like the match needed to be stopped. I didn't feel like the wrestlers were putting themselves in more danger than was necessary. It felt like a wild hardcore match and a brawl, but I never felt like it reached levels of dangerous where it was like the guys went too far. Some people do not agree with this, but the people that are saying the match was too violent, it's probably... I know Renee Young didn't like it, but she's married to Jon Moxley, so that makes perfect sense. I wonder if it's WWF fans trying to find something negative against AEW. Maybe it's kids that don't remember how violent wrestling can really be. Because I'm sitting here, I'm thinking of matches that were way more, made me way more squeamish and were way more violent than what I saw with Kenny and Jon Moxley. And actually, Delixman posted this on Twitter, and I made a comment. It's I think I can name 20 matches that I thought were more violent than this, and I don't even have to go to ECW, CCW, or Japanese death matches to do it. I would argue that Inferno matches and scaffold matches, by their very nature, are way more dangerous than anything that Kenny and Moxley did in this match. I would argue, Brett and Austin at WrestleMania 13 was more violent with the blood that was just pouring out of Austin's head. I would argue, obviously, Taker Mankind, I referenced it earlier. Foley and Rock at the Royal Rumble 99. That match was way more brutal than anything Kenny and Moxley did. Eddie and JBL at Judgment Day 04. Cena and JBL at Judgment Day 05. That one was a bloodbath, too. And even more recent ones, like the Cerro Miedo match from Lucha Underground or the Hell of War match from Lucha Underground. That match was fucking nuts. I mean, that match got tough to watch. That's how violent it was. So I could sit here and I could think of all these matches. Foley and Edge at WrestleMania. That happened at a WrestleMania. That match, and I would say that match was more violent than anything that Kenny and Moxley did. Again, I never felt like it got to a level where it was too much. There was no fire. There were no thumbtacks. The glass they used was clearly like sugar glass. It wasn't real glass, clearly. I guess the harshest thing they did was the barbed wire, the barbed wire bedding, I guess you would call it, the barbed wire mat or whatever that was, and the mousetrap spot, which I've seen Abyss do that before. And by the way, given my experience of dealing with a mouse problem, I've gotten my finger caught in mousetraps. It's not fun. There was a lot of power in those mousetraps, so I can't imagine taking a bump into it. But that even looked to a degree like it could have potentially been gimmicked to some degree. So I never felt like it got to a point where it was too hard to watch. And again, maybe if you're really young and you just don't know how violent, and even all the examples I listed, there's shit from the 80s they're just vicious bloodbaths. Not barbed wire, not thumbtacks or anything like that, but just two guys beating the ever-living shit out of each other. Like Tully Blanchard and Magnum TA from Starrcade 85, and some of Sergeant Slaughter's matches with Iron Sheik, and matches like that. And, people are looking at this match and saying it's too violent. And I'm like, I disagree. I have seen so much worse. You have no idea. And again, I can make a list without having to resort to using ECW, CCW, or Japanese death matches as an example. So I don't know if it's just a sign that people are too squeamish now, or if it's it's a WWE fan base sentiment to just try and make AEW look bad. I don't know. I would even argue, even though they didn't get color, Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano, with the concrete spot that they did, that was more squeamish than the stuff I saw in the Kenny Moxley match. Personal opinion. What did I think of this match? Well, I enjoyed it. I mean, I really liked the match. I know that hardcore wrestling isn't for everybody, and I understand that. There was a match at the MLW. Goddamn, I would even say the match at the MLW show the week before was probably more violent, or at least as violent, and nobody talked about it. It's like, I don't know. But in any case, hardcore wrestling's not for anybody, and it's not something I like to see all the time. It should be saved for special situations like this where I think it's warranted. And I thought it was an enjoyable match. I thought the two put together this nice little brawl, and with a bunch of crazy stuff thrown in. And I guess if I was going to criticize anything, like some of the contraptions that they brought out, like the barbed wire bedding and the mousetrap board and everything like that, it's like, all right, that seems a little cartoony, I guess is the word, but I'll let it slide because Kenny's an EVP with AEW, and it's like, okay, I can buy that he would set that stuff up beforehand and make sure that it was set up and for him to use, because I think he brought out the mousetraps and he brought out the barbed wire, if I'm not mistaken, like the barbed wire platform thing. So like, okay, I can see that, but I'll let it slide, because some of Abyss's matches got, in TNA, God, Abyss has had more violent matches. I'm sure Abyss is looking at this reaction online going, it's like, motherfucker, do you not remember the shit that I did? It wasn't that long ago. The match with Sabu, the barbed wire match, the fucking, I've seen him take the mousetrap spot, I've seen him do the flaming table bit. I'm like, my God, if this is too violent, then people are way too soft now. But in any case, I thought Moxley and Omega had a really good match. Great closer to the show. Moxley got the win, which I guess I'm not surprised by, even though I think I picked Kenny. I think having Moxley win his first pay-per-view match, or well, his second pay-per-view match, because he had the match with Janela, but to have him win this big match against Kenny, I think is good for him and gets him on the right footing. And he cut that great promo a couple weeks ago. So Moxley's like this big you've got like the elite are basically the faces, and the inner circle are basically the heels, and then you've got like Pac, who's like a secondary heel, and then you've got Moxley, who's like this kind of tweener type, really kind of this chaotic force in between that can fuck with both factions. And it's like, all right, that's interesting. I kind of like that arrangement. But anyway, thought the match was really good. I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was too squeamish. I watched it twice, once drunk, once sober, and I'm like, man, I thought it was fine. I've seen more violent matches. I was actually, when I watched it the first time, I was like, you think people are going to get disappointed that it wasn't violent enough? I mean, that was my initial reaction. And my friends were kind of looking at me like, I don't know, I thought it was good for what it was. Of course, we were also hammered, so who the fuck knows? I'm not even sure we were speaking English at that point, so who knows? But in any case, fortunately, it was at my place and I didn't have to drive, so, a nice setup I had going for me. But anyway, that's my thoughts on AEW Full Gear. I thought the show was pretty good. I wouldn't call it like a runaway success. It wasn't the home run that Double or Nothing was, but I thought it was overall like B+ style show. I liked pretty much every match. There were some matches I liked more than others, obviously. I liked some of the storyline development. I was thoroughly entertained throughout. I liked that they shortened it to 3.5 hours. The main card was 3.5 hours. I'm like, okay, that's a lot more palatable than 5 or 4.5. I was like, okay, I think they took that criticism to heart and they shortened it at least a little bit. And when you watch it with the pre-show, it's like, and some people count the pre-show in that. I do too. When it comes to WrestleMania, it's like, oh god, 7 hours, that's a lot. But even with the pre-show, 4.5, and the pre-show is mostly just video packages anyway, it didn't feel cumbersome. It did not feel overwhelming. And it's like, okay, I think shooting for this length, maybe even a little shorter than that, I think you're in a sweet spot, and you can do that. And I would argue, AEW not holding pay-per-views every month, only having one weekly show to build up to these pay-per-views, and the fact that their pay-per-views are only on Saturday night, and I don't have to be up for work the next day, WrestleMania, makes them a lot more palatable. It's like, okay, maybe they can get away with doing a longer show, but even then, it's like, I would appreciate just scaling back on that. But overall, like I said, I think I enjoyed just about every match on the show to some degree. I liked the booking overall. I like some of the storyline developments, like Daniel's return and Kong showing up, and I liked most of the matches. And I thought Cody and Jericho was match of the night. So good stuff all around. Overall, thoroughly entertaining pay-per-view. So I'm going to give it a B. That's going to be the grade I give it. And that is all I have for you now. Thank you all for watching. And I have a couple ideas for videos that I'm going to try and knock out over the next couple of weeks. So be on the lookout for those. But that is all I have for you now. Thanks again, everyone, for watching. And I will see you all later.